I like to think that we should never miss a good opportunity to laugh. Well, to laugh through the tears as we watch the suits and corporate shills do their best to reduce the art form of video games to the lowest common fucking denominator and transform it into a tool for turning the next generation into behaviourally diminished dopamine addicts. The good news is that the butt clowns of the AAA industry did at least manage to fail and fuck up with such spectacular aplomb in 2019 that we have a decent sized pile of moronic shit mental idiocy to conjure up at least a few good chuckles. So here we go with the nominations. Funniest video game industry moment of 2019. Wolfenstein Youngblood Attack of the Idiots. Stolen microtransactions. If you ever want proof that there is such a thing as karma and natural justice does sometimes happen, then look no further. I personally pissed my lady tights when I found out that players were just helping themselves to the microtransactions in Wolfenstein Youngblood. It would appear that people that were just pissed off with the monetization, not prepared to pay money for shitty skins or just looking to make a dirty protest, started using Cheat Engine to just hack the game and help themselves. Publishers want to turn video games into virtual shopping experiences, and it would appear that many gamers want to turn them into virtual looting experiences. This incident was very interesting for a number of reasons and got me thinking. Recently, a lot of publishers have started waging a low-level war on modders, and I have been struggling to figure out why suddenly publishers hate modders, who have traditionally been the guardian angels of a lot of franchises, fixing bugs, adding content and generally keeping titles like Fallout and Skyrim alive for many, many years after launch. Historically, if gamers bought a single-player game, modding or changing the game was a non-issue. Now suddenly, the publishers are getting very territorial about the issue. Then, the penny dropped. Publishers love microtransactions. Publishers are making even their single-player games always online as a means to promote in-game sales and manipulate players in real time. Suddenly it becomes obvious why publishers have turned on modders and see them as an existential threat. They don't want people making content for free, when the publishers can charge them for the same or for inferior shite. Publishers don't want a community of people capable of editing game code and sharing freeware so others can learn the same. Suddenly the brute reality crystallised before my eyes. Publishers hate modders because they give players stuff for free and threaten ultra monetization. This would certainly explain Bethesda's appalling treatment of their modding community. They have passively profited from modders for years, who fix their broken ass buggy games for free. Now they throw them a few crumbs from the dining table, and some publishers are suing modders and taking them to court. In a sinister turn of events, as I was literally making this video, the following story broke. Blizzard quietly inserted a noxious clause into its terms of service for Warcraft 3 Reforged, the Warcraft 3 reboot. Reddit user Man-Eating Boar went through the terms of service and discovered the following clause. To the extent you are prohibited from transferring or assigning your moral rights to Blizzard by applicable laws to the utmost extent legally permitted, you waive any moral rights or similar rights you may have in all such custom games without any remuneration. Basically, this is a massive fuck you cash grab from Blizzard, in a franchise propped up by modders. Blizzard now wants to snaffle up the intellectual property rights of modders' hard work and creativity. I mean, seriously, what the fuck? A multinational corporation that is so tight-fisted and anti-consumer, it feels entitled to steal the work of its own volunteer fanbase content creators. I, for one, will require a lot of convincing before I spend another penny on any Blizzard or Activision game ever again. These guys are behaving like scum and don't deserve the loyalty of their own players and fans. The even more sinister implication of this terms of service change is that if there is an aspiring game maker out there who develops some ideas using Warcraft 3 Reforged and sketches it out in a map, At some point in the future, Blizzard could claim ownership over that developer's future work, if it bears similarities to any map they made in Warcraft. I've heard people comment that this is all to do with the success of Dota, which was initially a mod which became a franchise apparently. I don't really know much about it. My honest advice to any wannabe developer is that you should not fucking touch this pile of fuck game, because you risk Activision suing you later in your career. This is the long and short con here. They want to retail the mods people make in the short term and own future derivative IPs in the long run. If you're a modder or developer, I would treat Warcraft 3 Reforged like the toxic piece of shit that it is, and consider any time invested in it to be wasted. But coming back to Wolfenstein, I don't promote the idea of players violating their end-user license agreement. However, I will qualify that I actively object to and disagree with the current end-user license agreements being issued by publishers vastly more. They are horribly shit, unfair, entirely weighted towards the publisher, illegal in some territories like Finland, and overreach in their scope. Frankly, I think it's fuck funny that in a game as utterly terrible and miserable as Wolfenstein Shithead's Attack of the Slut Barbies, people just said fuck it and helped themselves to what were, let's face it, trashy, profiteering cosmetic items in a game that frankly profited of Nazi imagery. I think this is hilarious, and the only real villains here is Bethesda.
Oh my god, I got his brains in my mouth! Water, give me water!
For legal reasons, I'm obviously obliged to drone out some half-arsed comments to the effect of, I don't condone what these players have been doing. I am, however, neither obliged nor prepared to fucking condemn it. Especially when it's so funny and frankly entirely justified in a single player game. It's the player's fucking game. They should be able to do whatever the fuck they like with it. Apex Legends. A developer wins hearts and minds. I will reluctantly concede that I am not someone who is world-renowned for their good manners and formal etiquette. I am, however, at least sufficiently civilised to appreciate that there are several words that should not be included in an optimal apology if your intention is to sound sincere. Words like freeloader, arsehat, and dick spring to mind as three indisputable examples. So I guess at the very least I am more sophisticated and cultured than the bum-fingering developer from Respawn who started shit-flinging at his own customers during his arrogant, self-righteous meltdown on Reddit. This all started out as a well-intentioned apology for their shitty, nauseatingly overpriced monetization. Although this itself begs the question, why are they apologising if they set the prices? If they are genuinely sorry, then lower the prices. They didn't drop your favourite booby cup or turn up 10 minutes late for an appointment at the GU clinic. They decided to ramp up the cost of microtransactions to increase profits. Being sorry, not being sorry, saying sorry, not sorry, none of this makes any sense. If you are doing something wrong and you know it's wrong, you fucking stop doing it. You don't just carry on doing it while saying sorry. That's the way a criminally insane prison inmate would behave. Then again, it's still not quite as bad as doing something wrong, saying sorry, and verbally abusing the victims. That's like mugging a pensioner and apologising whilst you're doing it by screaming, "I'm sorry, you fucking shit-eater." This behaviour is insane by my standards, and my standards are usually batshit crazy. What the fuck was this guy thinking? I guess he wasn't thinking. He was either having some kind of personal crisis in real time, or he just thinks the players are peon scum. And that is precisely how he speaks to them. Then again, I get the impression that a lot of developers and publishers don't really like their customers, which probably in their heads helps justify doing all sorts of shit things to us. But just to examine the background logic in the instance of Apex Legends, here is how free-to-play or freemium games work. 95% of the players play for free. A very small percentage of the players do nearly all the spending. That right there is the business model. Nearly everyone is a freeloader. That's how they work. A tiny group of wallet warriors bankroll the operation, and the free-to-play game is essentially a giant fishing net to catch the whales. Sic semper erat, et sic semper erit. That is Latin, apparently, for thus has it always been, and thus shall it ever be. You silly gobshite developer horse botherer. Seriously, if this developer can't talk to the customers without fucking spitting, someone needs to put a spit guard on this guy and just restrain him and tie him back up in the basement. Electronic Arts crying about the fact people hate them. Yeah, I know, right? Executive Vice President of Strategic Growth at Electronic Arts, Matt Bilby, bemoans the fact in an interview that people say mean things about EA. I quote, 25 years at EA and I still struggle with the external perception that we're just a bunch of bad guys. We love making and playing games. Unfortunately, when we make mistakes on games, the world knows about it because it's of a size and scale. Pertinent and erudite point there, Matt. Let me kindly formulate a retort. Ah yes, people hate your company's fucking guts with a vengeful righteous fury because loot boxes in FIFA, lying to the Digital Culture, Media and Sports Committee inquiry, making Anthem, making lots of other shitty games, fucking up the Battlefield franchise, shutting down many beloved development studios because of your fuck-ups, fucking up Dungeon Keeper, the sum totality of all your pedo cash fucktardery, paying off subreddit moderators, forcing your staff to sue you for their unpaid wages, Star Wars Battlefront 2, manipulating game reviews, destroying the beloved Command & Conquer franchise, banning people on forums and then tracing their player accounts and banning those too, making some of your staff work 13-hour days, 7 days a week, and only letting people off on Saturday nights if they are good and well behaved. Mass Effect Andromeda. I mean, just this alone would make half of all gamers hate your fucking guts. I could continue this list indefinitely, but that right there is the point. You could write a fucking catalogue on all the reasons people are pissed off with and hating on Electronic Arts. And if he is pretending to be all surprised that people don't like their brand, then he is either playing dumb or just plain dumb. Look, at this point, perhaps the most sympathetic way we can describe Electronic Arts' reputation is by defining what they have not yet been implicated in. I have no concrete evidence that they have been involved in organ-doning black markets, trafficked sex slaves, directly ordered anyone's murder yet, illegally sold arms to oppressive third world countries, been involved in rendition or torture, caused any man-made earthquakes. I don't think they've done any of that stuff, and that's the nicest thing I can say. So yes, the fact that EA has not been involved in those acts constitutes a compliment is a sorry state of affairs. But fuck, it's more than I can say for the UK government. Just saying. I would also note that this fella looks a bit off. I don't believe he is in fact human. He looks like someone has taken a smiling customer service rep from a kid's store, skinned them alive and then stretched the meat suit over a Terminator T800 and just assumed it will look fine. All this being said, let's clarify that when we're talking about all of this hatred and anger, we're talking about EA and not Matt Bilby. Matt Bilby, whilst looking slightly inhuman, is veritably a handsome man, and I'm sure he's nice to fucking kittens and all that meaningless social media nonsense. I'm not saying he's ugly, nasty or weird looking. Although if he asks you where Sarah Connor lives, I would suggest you just run. Ubisoft tanking its share value. After years of taking hate, abuse and coming under attack from Ubisoft and their snivelling minions for claiming that they rip off their customers, release unfinished games, take the piss with games as a service, and have gone into a microtransactional fucking frenzy, Ubisoft had to issue a stock warning because sales for The Division 2 and the headline game Ghost Recon Breakpoint tanked, for all the reasons I previously stated. Then Yves Guillemot, CEO, basically wrote a letter to shareholders admitting that their brand had suffered because of all of these reasons. Did I get a cookie? Did I get any thanks? Did I get any recognition or apology for all of my warnings? Did I fuck? So I had to settle for a good laugh at their expense instead. I sat there in my fucking pants, dropping Cheetos on my knackers and swigging beer, laughing my tits off, screaming, "I told you so. I fucking told you so, you stupid cunts." Well, I did warn them. For years. The Division 2 being nominated for Best Multiplayer Game at the Game Awards 2019. I was going to include The Division 2 giving away a free Christmas gun, The Slayer, in this list. In the middle of a content crisis and player mass exodus, lolling into State of the Game and announcing the new content is a gun that fires snowballs is like giving away party hats on the Titanic. But Jesus fuck, Ubisoft is already hogging the bad parts of these awards, so instead I'm going to confine this discussion to them getting nominated for an industry award that was good. If you ever tell anyone that there is collusion between AAA publishers, video game journalism and the Game Awards, they'd just point them at this one factoid. The Division 2, a game that launched half finished, which still hasn't delivered on its promised content, that Ubisoft's own CEO admitted was one of the two most underperforming titles of 2019, that contributed to a profit warning, which is largely abandoned by player and content creator alike. This dog's dinner, this stark and chilling failure of a game, was nominated for Best Multiplayer Game of the Year 2019. I was fucking speechless. And shortly after became hysterical. How could you trump such a move? Nominate Jeffrey fucking Epstein for Babysitter of the Year? How can anyone in good conscience nominate The Division 2 for Best Multiplayer Game of 2019 and not expect people to stare at you like you had lost the fucking plot? I reckon that if I had a big enough advertising revenue to blackmail people with, I could get a tramp's sweaty left bollock nominated in the Game Awards. Because if The Division 2 is being nominated for anything other than biggest dumpster fire of 2019, then something is profoundly corrupt in the gaming industry. Google Stadia. Yep, that's it. That's the joke. Google Stadia. A concept that is so fucked up funny that nothing I say will top it. I'm compelled, however, to explain what Google Stadia is for those of you who don't know. Google Stadia is an online gaming service where you pay lots of money to play games badly, with vastly more latency, over the internet. For no logical reason I can fucking comprehend. I mean, why pay $50 to play a video game at home when you can pay extra to sit at home playing on a machine hundreds of miles away whilst dealing with thousands of milliseconds more ping? Brilliant! You know how NASA has trouble communicating with rovers on Mars because it takes radio signals 8 minutes to get there and 8 minutes to get back? Well, that is basically the core business model of Google Stadia, with only a few critical differences. Trundling a fucking rover around Mars at 1 mile per hour is more fun than Google Stadia. NASA update their software more often than Google Stadia. And most critically, NASA probably gets slightly better latency times and probably doesn't cost that much more than Google Stadia. Look, Stadia is a shitty idea, a shitty product, and nobody asked for it, and the only reason it exists is because Google wants to lease you your games rather than have you own them. It wants to hold your saved game files hostage, and it wants to use the data it's already harvested from you to leverage you for more microtransactions. At least, it's a terribly bad idea, and hopefully won't catch on. That's something, I guess. GTA Online gambling update. Gets banned instantly in over 55 countries. Dear Lord, if only every single AAA publisher was this much of a heavy-handed, clumsy, unthinking bumblefuck when rolling out microtransactions, then loot boxes and microtransactions would be outlawed by the end of the month. I don't play GTA 5 online, but this unavoidably came on my radar, like a giant super tanker smashing into a pier packed with tourists. In a climate of suspicion, at a time where legislators, healthcare professionals and regulators are scrutinising the gaming industry for their malevolent practices, precisely when the industry is desperately claiming that they are not engaged in gambling, as they try to stave off potential litigation and legislation, Take-Two Interactive thought the best possible way to keep a low profile and stay out of the gun sights of the critics would be to scream YOLO and slap a giant fucking casino down in the middle of GTA Online. You could not make this shit up. To examine the full horror of this stupidity, let's use a hypothetical situation to assess this scenario objectively by using a sociological example so that we can be mature and scientific about our analysis. Imagine if there was a manhunt in your hometown for a sex offender, flasher, pervert, kiddie fiddler. If said deviant was trying to avoid getting caught, which course of action do you think would be most sensible? A. Go home, keep a low profile, stay out of trouble and avoid drawing attention to yourself. Or B. Grab a copy of the Mothercare catalogue and stand outside the local police station and crack one out. Because I'm pretty sure if I posed this question to the executives at Take-Two Interactive, it's entirely possible they would scratch their heads, mull it over for a bit, look confused, and reply, B? I mean, what the actual fuck? According to reports, the GTA Casino was almost instantaneously banned in 55 countries, including Luxembourg, Iceland, and Afghanistan. When you do something so bad it gets banned in Afghanistan, you know you have fucked up. You can bugger goats and shoot your relatives at weddings in Afghanistan. Kind of ironic, however, that the United Kingdom, the United States and Canada are all perfectly fine with the kiddie gambling. That is some cultural relativism right there. When fucking Afghanistan, Iraq and Azerbaijan seizes the moral high ground, then maybe, just fucking maybe, it's time for us to take a long hard look at ourselves in the mirror. A casino. Incredible. FaZe Jarvis, Fortnite superstar, gets a life ban. I will make a few qualifying points. I don't buy into cancel culture. I don't think anyone should have their career ended over one fuck up, especially not over a historic one. 3 strikes and you're out is one rule that works for me because it accounts for mistakes, grey areas and subjectivity. If you got busted 3 times for the same crime, it's hard to say all the incidents were an accident or a cock up. It's fair and allows for rehabilitation. However, if someone has a long and proven track record of committing infractions, rule breaking and crimes, and then finally gets busted for the lot after a long illustrious career of misdemeanours, that is not a scenario for the 3 strikes rule. I don't think the rule means do as many shitty things as you possibly can, and when you get busted, demand a second and third chance to get away with a huge litany of crimes. 3 strikes means 3 crimes, not 3 huge trials where you were convicted of multiple crimes that occurred over a period of time. So with this in mind, I did think the alleged scandal of FaZe getting banned for life was damn right hysterical, and the fact that people like Ninja stood up for him and suggested he got a second chance was farcical. Honestly, I thought Ninja was probably thinking more along the lines of, I wouldn't want to get cancelled for one thing I did wrong in the past. To my surprise, even Dr. Disrespect took the attitude that it was way too harsh. He drew on the comparisons of an esports team that got caught cheating and only got 2 weeks ban. I don't know, to me that's faulty fucking logic. Some random cheating fucks got let off too lightly, so let's let everyone off too lightly. What the fuck is that logic? Someone kills your wife and gets 5 years in prison? That's fucked up. It shouldn't be used to justify lighter sentences for all murderers. In fact, the opposite. Current estimates reckon that maybe as many as 25% of players cheat online now. Cheating is a scourge that needs to be constantly expunged from gaming by any means, because it robs honest players of their time, money and quality of experience. Tolerating cheaters in esports is an absolute disgrace, and that telegraphs the message that cheating is fine if you get away with it. FaZe Jarvis wasn't just some kid who made a mistake once and was punished too harshly. Here is what the little shitweasel fucker was up to. FaZe Shitweasel was a streamer with 2 million followers who not only cheated at Fortnite using aimbot and hacks, but he started making videos where he was doing it just for lols and trolls. So let that sink in. He was not only making a career out of cheating in video games and defrauding his fellow players in camera, but escalated to openly making videos about using cheats in Fortnite. By default, promoting cheating in video games to over 2 million gamers. Allegedly. If these reports are true, this was not some little mistake. He didn't park on a double yellow line or forget to return his copy of 50 Shades of Grey to the local library on time. He was an outright shitbag who was being a very naughty boy indeed, and was continuing to escalate. Seriously, fuck this guy. I'm sorry, but cheating in video games affects all honest players negatively, and it's a death by 1,000 cuts. It's an attrition of our time, investment and our money. This guy's profiteering by encouraging millions of other people to do it too. This prick needed to be shut down. I don't often say anything positive about Epic Games, and I'm not going to today, but hypothetically, if I were to say something nice, it would be something like, Epic Games did the right thing for once, and credit to the moderators who took that decision, and credit to the managers who backed them up. And then I would probably add something about them pleasing their oppressive Chinese overlords, and then shout, free to bet. But the winner of funniest moment of 2019 goes to Activision's nonsensical non-apology for their non-stance on Hong Kong. Activision Blizzard, ActiBliz, they're all basically the same corporate beast for the purposes of this one, unless you really want a breakdown of corporate structure, which you can look up on Wikipedia yourself. So I'll use those pejoratives interchangeably. One of the lowest points in Activision's already legendary year of gutter licking was the banning of Hong Kongese Hearthstone player Blitz Chung for referencing the Hong Kong protests during a live stream. This triggered mass protests itself. People boycotted Blizzcon, people protested at Blizzcon. I heard that Activision Blizzard staff at Blizzcon actually fucked about some of the protesters and did shit like ban them from taking their cameras inside or filming, which was perfectly allowed for non-protesters. In fact, if I remember correctly, the YouTuber DreamcastGuy was banned from taking his camera inside by security just because they saw him talking to the protesters. On top of this, the US Congress was shitting complaints at them. Their own staff organised a walkout, and let's be honest here, this situation should trigger a shitstorm of epic proportions. Blitzchung's protest wasn't about legalising heroin or lowering the legal age of sexual consent to 11, demanding all school kids get free weed. He was demanding democracy. You know, that basic fundamental principle of all Western nations. Like adequate sanitation and access to drinkable water. I mean, nothing excessive. So in the aftermath of Activision Blizzard clearly acting to save face with the Chinese authorities, unfairly banning Blitzchung and punishing the presenters as human sacrifices at the altar of the Beijing gods, everyone was losing their shit, and Blizzard pooped it and fell silent. The world waited with bated breath for Activision to respond. The world was waiting for a hero to step into the arena, someone to man up and do something about it. Yeah, well, they didn't get that. At BlizzCon, Blizzard's president, Creeper-in-Chief and greasy smirking fucklord, J. Allen Brack, got on stage to issue what can only be described as an embarrassing, begging plea to encourage sales and mitigate the PR damage, wrapped unconvincingly in the threadbare rhetoric of an apology. It was not an apology. There was no apology.
Blizzard had the opportunity to bring the world together in a tough Hearthstone esports moment about a month ago, and we did not.
It was a disingenuous shitbag trying to make his corporation look more sympathetic without actually apologising and potentially angering the Chinese government.
We didn't live up to the high standards that we really set for ourselves. And the second is we failed in our purpose. And for that, I am sorry, and I accept accountability.
You see, he is not apologising for the actual shit he did. He is banging on about values and standards and apologising for not meeting those abstract, self-proclaimed goals, whilst specifically not saying, "I'm sorry I banned that poor fucker to appease the Chinese government." It was a masterclass in being a dirty, little dishonest, shitbag, double-speaking bitch. I have rarely ever seen so much bullshit compressed into a 3.5-minute speech. Unfortunately for him, however, that much bullshit contained under such immense pressure has a habit of blowing apart at the seams, and that is exactly what happened. For a start, everyone picked up on the fact that he did not make any direct reference to any tangible thing that the apology was supposed to be referencing. The two Hearthstone presenters ended up remaining sacked. Blitzchung remained banned and still lost his money. I think they reduced the ban by 6 months, but so what? President Greaselord claimed their BlizzCon, which is essentially a sales show, was for the benefit of the players. But it was costing $200 a ticket. Fuck, a virtual ticket costs 50 quid to watch it on the internet. But on top of all of this, he just could not help but fucking smirk when people started cheering and he thought he'd pulled it off.
So what exactly...
It was quite pathetic. Like a kid lying to his teacher about stealing and giving the game away because they smirked when the teacher started to believe them. He so busted himself for being full of absolute stone cold bullshit. I bet the people in the front row could probably hear his PR advisor screaming at him down his earphone. "Stop fucking smirking, you idiot! Stop with the fucking smirking! You're gonna blow it!" And yes, indeed, he blew it. And just in case all of this giant airdrop of bullshit, misrepresentation and public relations smoke and broken fucking mirrors wasn't enough, they just had to take the piss that one little bit further. He uttered the immortal lines, "I hope it's clear how committed we are to everyone's right to express themselves."
I hope it's clear how committed we are to everyone's right to express themselves in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of places.
Oh, how we laughed. Activision Blizzard, a company that censors its own players, presenters and staff to serve its Chinese state overlords, who at that precise moment he spoke those words was confiscating people's cameras outside in the street, whilst their hired security was chaperoning the pro-democracy campaigners outside in the parking lot. I should qualify, by the way, that apparently it was the Activision event staff being cucks and banning cameras. Apparently the security staff were perfectly lovely to the protesters. I'm not even kidding. I was in contact with someone who was at the Blizzcon demonstration and they spoke very highly of the subcontracted security firm. Apparently one of them even held a protester sign for them at one point. Sometimes I think the world isn't worth saving and I feel like I'm overflowing with cynicism, and then I hear a story like that and my faith in humanity is restored. Well played, whoever that guard was. I would also mention as a footnote that some mainstream video game journalists were either stupid enough or paid enough to report this whole shit show as Blizzard President issues an apology. Apology my arse. It's a dark day when corporations at home engage in punitive actions and censorship in order to service the interests of tyrannical regimes abroad. Thank God at least the mood was lifted by Blizzard's hilarious, idiotic jibber-jabber. This is what the Creeper-in-Chief says inside the building.
I hope it's clear how committed we are to everyone's right to express themselves.
This is what is actually going on outside the building.
I was over there talking to a lot of the protesters who are getting ready for this giant event, and, well, when I saw them this morning, of course, I hooked up, shook some hands, started talking to them, and filmed the event. And it seems like maybe security didn't like that, because there were a lot of other people getting past the opening checkpoint with cameras, but for whatever reason, I was stopped and I didn't have a camera. So everything you're going to see here from Diablo 4 is just from my fiance's cell phone, but even still, well, perhaps this isn't allowed. During the demo itself, they started actually yelling at us again, no cameras, no cameras. So maybe this video will get taken down.
Corporations lie to us all the time, and they think we are so stupid that they smirk whilst they do it. Tragic. Tragic but very funny. Blizzard's president, Creeper-in-Chief, and greasy smirking fucklord J. Allen Brack wins the following prize. Some clown sad face makeup. And some eye drops so he can fake some tears. Hopefully next time he's pretending to give a fuck about something other than profits, this will help him look slightly more sincere. But I doubt it will be enough.
So what exactly...
Well, with all that shite out of the way, in the next episode I might actually have some positive things to say about the video game industry. God forbid. So if I do end up saying something nice, for fuck's sake don't tell anyone. I have my reputation to maintain. Video Game YouTuber of the Year, Worst Game of the Year and more. Coming up in the next episode. But for now, good luck. And happy hunting.